Hello, everybody. Welcome to our WrestleMania Saturday post-show. I am John Pollock, joined as always by Mr. Ting. We are minutes removed from the first night of WrestleMania that in fact featured the last match, I guess, question mark, involving Stone Cold Steve Austin. The bell rang. If that was the prop bet, it did ring. You got to finish, and Steve Austin wrestled at the age of 57. How are you doing, Mr. Ting?
I'm doing very well, John. I'm buzzing off that show. Just minutes removed.
There was a lot to talk about on this show, a ton of news coming out of this show, and we will get into all of it. This day, though, it feels like a week since we last spoke on Friday night. I really felt this on Saturday from the time I woke up. There was so much to watch, and I was like scheduling myself to try and get through all of it. I was in a blur in the middle of the day.
There is a lot of wrestling. Yeah.
Like when, how long does that NXT show feel like it was? So you could convince me that was like 3 days ago and it was this afternoon.
I watched it right before the show, like
Wow.
before WrestleMania. So for me, it just feels like kind of one long event, but there was a lot that happened. I mean, to me, Ring of Honor felt like it was, forever ago.
Yes. I watched that this morning, and then I watched NXT in the afternoon, and then I watched this, and there was other stuff in there as well. Yeah. Before we get into the show review, and thanks to everybody that is joining us here on the YouTube channel, we greatly appreciate you subscribing to the channel and circulating it. Obviously, this is our biggest weekend of the year. There is a ton of coverage up at the site at postwrestling.com. I do want to take a minute to thank all of our contributors this weekend helping us out. Braden and Davey, of course, have their show up from Stand and Deliver. That is up on the Up Next feed. John Cena, who was invaluable, especially tonight, as well. John Pine, who has been doing reports and joined Way for a bonus show going through Spring Break Part 2, which I listened to.
You did? Okay. Did you make it to the clusterfuck review?
I got through all of it. I cannot say there was any part of me that wished I was reviewing that show with you. But I needed to get out today, and that was my my listening as I went for a walk. But as well, Bruce Lord, who I want to thank as well. So a lot of help this weekend on the site. It's been a lot. Like I'm pretty run down from this, but certainly a ton to talk about though. So I have a lot of energy.
The wrestling industry is alive and healthy. There are just infinite amounts of shows, and I think an infinite amount of interest, I would say, from the audience. It seems like everything getting a good deal of buzz surrounding it. So again, if you want some complete show reports, you can either listen to our podcast, some available on this feed, most of them available on our Patreon feed, postwrestlingcafe.com, or go to postwrestling.com and read a lot of the reports from our wonderful team of contributors this weekend.
That is right. So you can catch up on all of those shows. Our bonus shows are up at postwrestlingcafe.com. We've put out several bonus shows already. We had a show on Thursday night covering Bloodsport as well as Spring Break Part 1. We had another one on Friday going through the Hall of Fame, SmackDown. And then today, I put out a show solo going through Supercard of Honor, which, wait, it's one thing to talk to yourself. It's also another to be looking at yourself for 45 minutes. That was a trip. But anyway, that is up covering Supercard of Honor. That was a very newsworthy show, and the aforementioned show that John Pine and Wade did on Spring Break Part 2. And then we'll do this all again tomorrow night right here on the YouTube channel after WrestleMania Sunday. By the end of this show, there was part of me that I cannot believe that we're doing this all again in 24 hours.
Oh yeah. Oh, get used to it. This is the rest of our lives. Well, it's going to be a 2-night WrestleManias forever.
They confirmed it tonight that next year at SoFi Stadium, April 1st and 2nd, 2-night event for WrestleMania. So there will be no questions about that. And I would concur. I think that this is probably where we are moving forward, where WrestleMania is now. And I can understand it. I will take this format over those marathon fests, many of which we attended live, and it just got to be way too much of what they would try to cram too much in. And even tonight, we saw a match get cut on the main show. So all of that to come.
It's better for the audience. Well, I would say better on a one-night basis for the audience, but certainly it is better for the company because their bottom line, is essentially doubled on these nights by doubling their output. So, and I'm sure Peacock is happy about it too.
How do you feel, then we'll get to the review itself, about kind of the more condensed schedule this week for WWE in terms of putting everything into more of it's pretty much 3 days when we're talking about SmackDown and the Hall of Fame. Like last year, they spread out things. We had 2 nights of NXT, but those were earlier in the week. I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they had the Hall of Fame. They had 2 Hall of Fame ceremonies, and then we had SmackDown, and then we had the 2-night WrestleMania. It was more of a week of events versus this is all kind of condensed, and we got WrestleMania and NXT all in the same day.
That is right. Yeah. I mean, I think so much of that is just because, where do you put NXT? If not on, like, where else can you possibly fit it? Like, you could do Wednesday, but coming right off of, you could do it Wednesday or Thursday, but to me, it doesn't feel like it's as special nor as part of the week. I think having it kick off like with SmackDown in town leading into the Hall of Fame, I actually enjoyed it. Makes, lifts the profile of SmackDown, gives people a bigger reason to attend that show that are there live. NXT at this point really is just developmental. And, can you devote a whole night to what is essentially a developmental show? Maybe we'll give some of our thoughts on that particular show tomorrow. But I hardly think that it's like, I think an afternoon slot makes sense for it at this point.
Yes, and the other thing, we will be going to calls at the end. If you are a double Ice Cap or Espresso member at postwrestlingcafe.com, you will have the ability to call in after our review.
We're also taking your super chats if you're watching us live on youtube.com/postwrestling. If you guys have any thoughts or comments that you want to get onto the show, we will get to those as well at the end of our review.
So, Wei, if you were putting out a newspaper tomorrow, what's your headline for WrestleMania?
Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestles in the WrestleMania main event.
Okay, that's probably the biggest thing coming out of this show. There was a lot in terms of where you could go, but I think that is going to be the major takeaway from tonight's show. And it was interesting just in terms of the promotion of it, that I'm sure many people will say, well, why didn't they promote it as a match? I think that was smart in the sense that you didn't build up people's expectations that announcing a match may have done. And like, we'll get into it with Steve Austin. Like, I can imagine like there was a lot of pressure on him to deliver. And this guy's 57 and there's a lot of realities with that. And I think if we had 4 weeks to envision a Steve Austin match, instead it was, I think people going into this, what kind of segment are we going to get? What kind of physicality? And let's over deliver and under promise. That seemed to be the thinking.
No, it's very true. Personally, I did question because we didn't know the extent of, I think, the physicality, right? It could have been as little as, hey, like KO show is done. He does a few punches and then delivers a stunner. We get some beers. They could have gotten away with that. But
and probably would have moved more tickets, I think, with a match being promised. I think that would have made a little bit of a difference. Maybe not to the extent of selling like 10,000 more tickets, but I think if you had a full program and match, but I do think it would have been a lot, on him. And
higher expectations.
And yes. I'm sure Austin was kind of controlling the reins of this. Like it was, what he would want.
Yeah, it's very true. I feel like the last time we had something similar happen was when they advertised Bret Hart's return versus Vince McMahon. And I think we all would choose to not necessarily... it was like fun to see Bret kind of make the entrance and do all of that in the build up to it. But I think most of us would prefer if perhaps, we don't consider that as part of the Bret Hart legacy of matches. Not to say tonight's Stone Cold Steve Austin match, should be included in the best of Stone Cold Steve Austin matches catalog, but
it was like a significant moment. It was like the crowd loved it, but it was he's 57. Like those are the realities of what we're watching.
To have it be a bonus rather than something that I feel like I'm actively paying a ticket to go and see, definitely kind of decreases the expectations and lets them get away with a lot more.
Yes, I'm sure Shawn Michaels wished he had booked a spot on the Kevin Owens show in Saudi Arabia in 2018.
That's a great question. Yeah, I wonder.
Actually, wait, Kevin Owens wasn't going to that show, so he would have had to find another interview.
Well,
segment.
okay, but seriously though, if Shawn did not make a return in Saudi Arabia, could this have been Shawn's spot? And would he have taken it?
Now, I guess it would... It's hard to say. Obviously, there was enough in 2018, and it was, certain people he was working with that probably, convinced him enough that he wanted to do this, but obviously had no desire to pursue it after that. So he was at least open to it at that point in 2018, but it was also the right people. I look at all the other options. Like, they never did a Danielson match. It was like there were plenty of options for Shawn that never materialized. But that one, I think, with Taker, with Kane, and Hunter, he decided, hey, let's go for it, and probably was paid pretty handsomely too.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So let's get into this show. We go back. The kickoff was pretty much the panel outside of Kayla Braxton, Booker T, JBL, Peter Rosenberg, Kevin Patrick was involved. Jerry Lawler came during the second hour. Dude, this guy is like the real, like, Madcap Moss. These jokes
He's a
were
bit funnier than Madcap Moss. Come on.
I don't know. These jokes were just, they were terrible. And I guess by design, they're terrible, but they're still terrible. So.
Well, you know what's interesting I found about Jerry Lawler on the kickoff is that, like, he was going full heel, cheering for the heels, making cases for the heels, including, like, he was siding with Logan Paul and The Miz here. And didn't they have a segment where, like, they were directly opposed on Raw?
That's right. Yeah. Well, he's, for the sake of the segment, they needed a heel, so he was the heel here. Yeah. We had interviews with Maria Menounos. TikTok influencer Josh Richards, a native of Toronto, was on the panel and met with chants of "Who are you?"
Booed like crazy, this poor guy. Yeah, he's only 18 years old. And apparently an executive at Triller.
He's the chief strategy officer. I think he's 20. I looked this up. Okay. He's actually younger than Julia Hart.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, good for him.
Yes. He said he grew up, he liked copying Brock Lesnar's finisher. Do you know how old he was when Brock Lesnar debuted on the main roster?
-2.
He was 7 weeks old.
7 weeks. Great.
We had Jackie Redmond stationed inside. There was this great moment where she interviewed this girl who was dressed up like Rhea Ripley. That was like a really cool spot. And then she got to do the big stomp to send them back to the desk. And yeah, that was, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. Maybe the best part was Madcap Moss appearing, and the graphic reads, "Andrew the Giant Battle Royal winner."
I'm guessing there's autocorrect even back in the WWE Chiron station.
Or they're honoring someone else now. This mysterious Andrew the Giant. And then Booker was just having fun here. Just tell me, do another joke. Do another one. And he's just loving these jokes and just kept going until Moss ran out of them. And that was your 2-hour pre-show. I'm not complaining, though. It was like, this is total skippable content, and you don't need to watch it. And they're also not putting matches on here that make you need it. I guess the New Day maybe would have preferred if they put a match or two on this, but...
Well, I only complained because I actually sat down to watch it.
I did too. I'm not saying...
My time was wasted.
But this to me, it's like, this is part of the job. Like, we've got to watch it if anything newsworthy happens, but it was also it was what it was.
It's totally fine. You're right. It is fine.
You do not have to watch tomorrow. I am fine to just throw this on in the background somewhere.
I'll watch it at 2 times or 3 times the speed. It's fine. To me, the most significant thing was Jake Paul. He made an appearance on the panel.
Right.
The guy I found, I mean, of course, he's a huge draw in combat sports, and he really is as much of a natural.
He should be doing this if he's interested in it. I thought he came off like a great heel. He got the whole crowd like booing him. I thought he did a good promo here on the desk with all of them, even as Booker was trying to like trip him up and like confuse him about the Miz saying bad things about Cleveland, but your brother's teaming with him. It's like Jake Paul's got no clue about any of this. Anyway, no, I think Jake Paul, if he's interested in doing something, but he didn't get involved at all on the show, even though he said he was going to get into the ring.
Oh, he's making a lot more money, I think, doing what he's doing right now than he probably would even with a WWE, any sort of deal. But the option, of course, is there for him. And I'm sure maybe part of him caught the bug watching his brother do it.
He also needs like the right opponents in boxing. Like that last Tyron Woodley fight did not do a big number at all. So it would be interesting to see if he's looking at this as something that, gets his name back out there, because it's kind of, slid after that Tyron Woodley fight.
This dude, though, Akbar, the American Ninja Warrior commentator, did you hear him?
Yes.
He was fantastic, dude.
He was very good. Very good.
Oh, man. I believe apparently he was on the Stand and Deliver panel
he did the preview show. He did a segment just like this with Sam Roberts and Beth Phoenix and Mackenzie Mitchell.
He was great. Like, knew his shit. It was clever. Like, I mean, I don't know. This felt like an audition, but like
Well,
he definitely passed.
Booker was very aware of this. Booker asked, "Are you after my job here?"
Yeah, he was great.
The pay-per-view itself, the premium live event, kicked off with Brantley Gilbert performing America the Beautiful, and then we got our opening video package with Mark Wahlberg introducing us to WrestleMania.
Marky Mark. Yeah.
Yes, got a bunch of classic WrestleMania clips. And then the show began with Michael Cole promoting that we have over 70,000 here in attendance. I was like, by WWE standards, that's like a modest inflation. WrestleTix this morning had it at around just over, right around 64,000. And Brandon Thurston, he also noted that does not include suite numbers. So we will get the real number at some point. They announced over 77,000. So I'm sure it's the usual WWE pad in there. So we will see what the real number is.
Was it a pad that you were expecting, or did you find it egregious? How do you feel about the pad?
I mean, if the real number is right around 65,000 and they inflated it to 77, that's in line with a normal WWE pad. What was interesting with this one is just that you have the precedent of announcing 101,000 or whatever it was the last time you were here. And if they felt the need to just be crazy and announce it as such, and they didn't go that high. So I was expecting like the most exaggerated one in history. This was like normal exaggeration for WWE.
I'm assuming, like, in their minds, like, ultimately these numbers are going to come out, in their shareholders meetings, and they're going to have to somehow justify it, because last time didn't they say, oh, it's all the people in the back, it's like
that's what Vince said
ushers.
about the AT&T Stadium one. He said like that wasn't a paid number. That's like vendors and ticket takers and all that stuff.
There's no way you can make the jump from 60 to 100.
But the other thing is that the ones who report on this, like, really report on this stuff, it's like they know not to run with this kind of fake number. And the ones who do, I don't imagine they're going to go when the KPI comes out in July and they'll go back. So it's like they really don't get called on the carpet for this stuff, other than like the media that's actually covering this stuff like in detail. We started the show off with, what other way could you start the show other than the Dallas Cowboy girls coming out to Thunderstruck?
No other way.
I just wanted the Vince cam in the back, as he was probably just, grooving to this. You got AC/DC roaring. You've got Kid Rock all over this show.
Metallica. We had Pitbull. We had all the wrestling.
We had all the classics. Downstate even worked their way into there.
There you go. What all the music represented here.
God, talk about a Spotify playlist that would just I would throw into a lake.
What did you think about the set this year?
It looked nice. Looked big, looked spectacular. I liked like the long, like the kind of angled screen that they had. I thought it looked like a really nice set. Did you watch the set reveal?
The Dude Perfect. Yeah,
that was kind of cool with the football throw. I wonder how many takes that was.
I'd love to know those guys, like how many takes they do. I mean, it's impressive either way. It would take me.
Dude, I could never do that in a million years. So
you give me like a million tries, I would get 0 of those in like that. So
I thought it was cool. Yeah. I thought it was
cool.
That's a great like YouTube video to put out there. Mm-hmm. The Usos versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs for the SmackDown Tag Title. I'm sorry, Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs, presented by Mike's Hard Lemonade for their half tea, half lemonade campaign, and they came out donning the yellow and orange color scheme of the campaign.
Yeah, the amps had the logos, the LED screens had the logos, and there's also now the addition of LED screens around the barricades outside the ring as well. And I thought this was significant, John, because, I mean, for years, we know that Vince McMahon does not like to have logos of companies represented on his on-screen in-ring product, at least. And, this was an LED screen that pretty much, like, had the logo disappear during the match when it started. But nonetheless, I think it sets a different precedent for what advertising opportunities might
It's a huge
entail.
step. Think about the history of WWE, and not just like the big years, but like the lean years when that was like having a clean canvas. That was always an aesthetic that Vince McMahon subscribed to. And think of the advertising opportunities that they did not decide to capitalize on for that distinct look that they wanted. So.
Yeah. So we look to see if in the future it means, more wrestling acts will take part in adventures, either in Toyota Tundras or meeting with Harder Farmers. Is that the dude's name? Harder Farmer?
I'm not sure.
He was ringside.
Yeah, this is kind of similar to like UFC has kind of updated like the octagon look, adding like LED screens on like the perimeter as well. So kind of following suit in that sense. So this match had an unfortunate situation in the midst where Rick Boogs was lifting up both Usos onto his shoulders, and it looked like his knee just gave out. And what was odd was that he had done that storyline on TV where they went after his knee, and then he showed up pretending to have the knee injury, and then he was fine. So anyway, the knee gives out, and this is a legitimate injury. He rolls out to the floor. He never returns. Nakamura's got to finish this and ends up being hit with a 1D by and Jay gets the pinfall at 6 minutes and 53 seconds. Dave Meltzer would report on the nature of the injury, and then WWE Michael Cole and Pat McAfee noted later in the show that it appears he tore his quad and is going to need surgery on his patella. So that's going to be we don't know a timetable yet, but obviously surgery, that's going to be significant. Very unfortunate here for Rick Boogs getting hurt.
Very unfortunate for him, in his first WrestleMania. Unfortunate for all four of them. Torn quads are unfortunately something that we've, like wrestling fans, would kind of know or hear a lot about, and it's a, I don't want to say common occurrence, but it's not the first time that it's happening. We kind of have at least a rough time frame of like when we might expect somebody. So unfortunate that it happened here. I will say, if there is any silver lining, it's that we love comeback stories, and seeing him have such a big moment taken away from him, I think is a good way to potentially build to a big return for Rick Boogs.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate all around. Obviously, first and foremost for Boogs. I think also for Nakamura, that's really tough for him, like losing Rick Boogs as part of his act.
I have to imagine like he'll still probably, like it depends how much can he travel, with impending surgery and recovery and all that. But most of the gimmick throughout their run has been just him being a manager, playing guitar. So, and because now they have so many obligations to do with like the hard lemonade stuff, like I have to imagine he'll still be involved somehow.
And another huge part of the act though is Pat McAfee that he does still have for that entrance. So anyway, we wish the best to Rick Boogs. That's a tough injury and on a very big platform. Happy Corbin with Madcap Moss against Drew McIntyre was second. I've got to say, this was a match that I don't think anybody was looking forward to in any sense. I thought, though, that for the time that they had, it did not overstay its welcome. I thought both worked hard, in particular Drew, who you see, like, did not just treat this as like this is some throwaway match on WrestleMania. Like they treated this as like, hey, this is a big match for us, and they kind of went as much as you can say. Like, I don't want to like overpraise this, but they tried to have like a perfectly respectable match, and I think they succeeded in that. Drew ran into a deep six. He avoided a choke slam. Does the countdown, and the crowd is yelling, but Corbin rolls to the floor, and Drew hits a huge tope con hero onto both men and grabs Moss with a belly-to-belly overhead suplex. And oh my goodness, I watch this now, and I'm just like, I tense up. And man, on the pre-show, when they were promoting the tag match, the New Day match, just out of nowhere, they decide to throw in the Big E neck injury. I do not want to see that clip on TV again. Like, here's a program that it was our expendable match, and yet we feel the need that we've got to utilize this clip. And it's, man, especially when you don't know it's coming, and I just see this dude get dropped right on his head. I do not want to see that clip again.
I agree completely. I think they know. Yes, like like getting revenge for Big E is a part of this story. But I think knowing the real life severity of the injury, they could get away with it by simply showing the aftermath of him being stretchered out, or at least freeze framing the point of impact like they would typically do. Like
they do that all the time. Like no one needs to see the point of contact, and it's just, man, I just don't want to see that clip.
It just makes me feel uneasy, and I mean, I have no doubt that Big E, probably, I would hope, was fine with it, but it makes
Kofi
me
was on. Someone tweeted me the fact that when Kofi was on Pat McAfee's show, he says he has not seen that clip. He does not want to see it.
Yeah, it just makes us feel uncomfortable.
Like, I don't think anyone, like performers, would want to see that. So it's like, and it comes at you like without any warning on the show. It's like, I just totally like do your stills. You can still tell the story without showing the point of impact. But anyway, hit a safe overhead belly to belly here on Moss, and then misses with the Claymore, and Corbin hits end of days. Drew kicks out, huge pop, very protective finisher in WWE. For what you want to say about Corbin, this Cole said to his knowledge the first time anyone is kicked out of end of days, and I don't have any example that comes to mind of them having a kick out on this spot.
I'm not tracking all the ends of days that have ever been applied, so I will take their word for it. Yeah, made this match at least, have some sort of historical significance.
And then hits the Future Shock, comes back, countdown Claymore, and wins in 8 minutes and 39 seconds. And in the highlight, takes Angela as Moss is on the apron, and he swings the sword and slices the top 2 ropes.
It made like a big thundering sound
God,
too.
This
so
was
I don't
something.
know if like ropes, I don't know, like the ropes make that noise. I'm not sure, but this is some special sword, I think. So, yeah, I mean, it's a cool stunt, like a big visual spectacle. Like, at least it gives you some visual memory of this match, because otherwise I have to say it was not that memorable at all. But that's not to say it wasn't successful, because this was, even though to me it was like a pretty basic match that you would probably have had on TV or a B pay-per-view, like, this crowd got into it. They got into Corbin's stuff. They got into Drew's stuff as a babyface that they wanted to see beat up Corbin. So, yeah, successful.
This was certainly to me above a Baron Corbin match, and I thought both worked hard in this. Right guy goes over. It's like this was a keep busy program from Drew McIntyre. He can move on from this, and I would say like it had low expectations, and it certainly to me exceeded them. Rey and Dominik versus The Miz and Logan Paul. We got the outfits for the Mysterios. Rey comes out and he's all decked out with the colors of the Mexican flag, and Dominik paying homage to Los Gringos Locos here.
That is correct.
What an outfit here. He had the mullet and he had like the red, white, and blue attire.
I think he's slowly transforming to Eddie Guerrero circa 1994, and I'm all here for it,
I thought, honestly, the Dominik looked really good in this match, too. I thought, like, he had one sequence where it was like, it was very good.
I think he's incredibly consistent. He probably doesn't get enough credit for that. But like to me, like the guy for his level of experience, like never messes up. He's always given a whole lot, and to me, like pulls almost everything off. And did he do WrestleMania last year? You remember?
I think so. I think he was on last year's show.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, yeah. I mean, I have no doubt this is still a big moment and a big spot for him, and the guy looked very comfortable.
But then Miz and Logan come out in their matching yellow and black attire. And Logan Paul is wearing, and please correct me if I am wrong, a 1-of-1 Pikachu card that is deemed the most expensive Pokemon card in the world.
A Pikachu illustrator. Now, is it a 1-of-1? I'm not sure. Did they say
That's
that?
what they called it. That's what they called it.
Really? Wow. Okay. Well, I looked this up, and I saw that it recently auctioned for $900,000. So for any sort of collectible trading card or game playing card to cost that much is way beyond me. Is there a Magic card that's worth this much, John?
No,
no. Jester's cap worth this much?
The Black Lotus was kind of that big card, but that was like several hundred, as I recall, in like 1998.
Ooh. So the man had this like worn on his neck, encrusted in like I'm sure a diamond studded carrying case. It was completely ridiculous and completely perfect for, I think, the type of heel Logan Paul is.
Yeah. Do you think this was the legit card, or do you think he should?
I could see this being the legit card. Like I'm sure if he lost it, it's like I don't think it would ruin his life whatsoever.
It was like Kurt with like the gold medal. He eventually just wore the replicas.
Yeah. I don't know.
So Logan gets tagged in, and he's attacking Rey's ribs. Dude, Logan Paul looked really comfortable in there. Mm-hmm. He seemed to be having the time of his life, and man, he's doing leapfrogs. He goes into the splits, and then Dominik's in, and he goes through this sequence with a cabrada onto Miz, then grabs hold with a Greco-Roman knuckle lock into a head scissors, taking both men down onto the buckle and a tornillo to the floor. Honestly, I thought it was like just from one spot to the next. This was like Dominik like the best I've seen him. And that's not like a slight at other stuff, but this was a very advanced sequence that I thought he pulled off tremendously well.
To me, he's proven to be very capable. Like, you know, from his first time that he appeared. So yeah, he looks very much like a natural.
Logan nailed Dominik from behind with a cheap shot and hits a running power slam, blockbuster, and then Dominik fights, hits a tornado DDT, makes the tag to Rey, and they end up setting up the Miz for the 619, but he gets up and is hit with a spinning DDT by Rey, and then hits the Three Amigos, but Miz stops him on the last one. Logan goes over. This was like the one kind of botch of the match, was where he went for this. It was like a phantom punch that sent Dominik off the apron, and there was like no connection on it. The crowd is booing Logan, and Logan takes hold of Rey, and Logan Paul hits the Three Amigos, and this crowd is just, fuck this guy. And then he climbs to the top. He does the Eddie Guerrero like shimmy before hitting a frog splash. Dominik dives in. How dare you desecrate the man who has inspired my outfit for tonight? And Dominik hits a dive onto Miz, chases Logan around the ring, and he ends up caught. It's a trap as he is sent onto the middle rope. Double 619. They hit the big spot. Dominik with a frog splash. Rey with a frog splash. But Miz has blind tagged in, and he slams Dominik on top of his father before hitting Rey with the skull-crushing finale, and Miz pins Rey in 11 minutes and 16 seconds.
I never thought, you know, this year or maybe in my lifetime that a YouTube celebrity would be wrestling in a, you know, relatively high profile match on WrestleMania, and that he would gain heel heat by invoking the memory of Eddie Guerrero through the Three Amigos. Logan Paul and Eddie Guerrero are not names that I pictured, you know, saying in the same sentence. And I thought that was an absolutely brilliant and perfect spot. It was wonderfully set up and teased when Rey did the Three Amigos and that was cut off. But the moment Logan Paul, the like, you know, somebody that like we wonder if he's even seen an Eddie match. I mean, at this point, I am assuming he has seen plenty of wrestling, because this was fantastic. It was incredibly entertaining. In 2022, I think there exists a very high standard for celebrities wrestling in anywhere, really. And Logan Paul lived up to those standards. He clearly worked his ass off in presentation for it. I thought it showed here. The execution of all of his spots were fantastic. His heel mannerisms, taking the time, knowing, like, they're clearly teaching him, like, you know, their WWE style, because he takes his time, looks at the cameras, and makes faces for those close-ups. And I thought,
wait, how did he find the hard cam? He didn't go to NXT.
NXT probably came to him. Dude, like,
the hard cam found him.
Maybe that's it. But the point is, the guy took the time and is very aware of those instincts and playing to the crowd. He's got good size, a natural heel charisma about him. So, you know, of course, it helped that he was in there with two veterans that are excellent, of course, and The Miz and Rey Mysterio, and Dominik, who, of course, is very capable as well, but completely exceeded my expectations, and the crowd ate everything up.
Yeah, I thought Logan was a great heel in this match. So then they take a bow, and Miz hits Logan Paul with the skull-crushing finale. I was like, why? Why are you doing this? And it was clearly designed that it was Miz is the heel here. I just think, like, man, this guy he's a natural heel. So why are we doing this? To, I guess, further this somehow, whether it's Jake coming in. I mean, if those two are coming in as babyfaces, like, just talk about completely misjudging what the appeal is of the Paul brothers.
It failed the first time.
It did. They will like, there will be cities that will absolutely cheer the Miz over Logan Paul.
Oh yeah, because he's the wrestler. He's the person who has dedicated himself a lot more than Logan Paul. Now it'll be interesting to see like Logan Paul reactions, because he did look legitimately great. I think earned a lot of people's respect who watched it, but enough that people are going to want to cheer this millionaire who got rich off of like stupid YouTube and offensive YouTube videos and like wears Pokemon cards that cost $1 million around his neck. I don't think so. So, I mean, to me, it seems like they're building to a match between The Miz and Logan Paul, which, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But still, I would have Logan Paul be the heel in that situation.
Yeah, I was a fan of the angle afterwards, just because I just think Logan Paul is miscast as a babyface, and I think it's not even theoretical. We have seen it in practice in WWE of trying to present this guy as a babyface, and it's failed miserably. Stephanie McMahon comes out to thank the audience and brought out Gable Steveson to just wave to the crowd, and then they ran a promo for Young Rock, so putting some emphasis on Young Rock, which is
a Peacock property.
A Peacock property, and also one that is kind of struggling right now.
Oh, okay. Is that right? Well, I'll tell you, I've never seen one clip from Young Rock. So, I thought this was actually kind of necessary because it looked kind of cool.
For something that, I mean, they have an executive producer credit on, like you don't, and is in the NBC family. You don't see any promotion for this series on WWE.
There were also a lot of video packages on the show, and I'm assuming that's
Tons.
going to be one of the biggest complaints coming out of the show was the number of video packages that they had, because they didn't just have video packages for the matches that we were about to see, but video packages for all the matches for the next day. So I think a lot of people are going to ask why, but I believe also that these are the spots that they use to air the free commercials for the free Peacock feed, is it not?
Correct. And remember what the figure was set in, what was it, Adweek this week, of something like $12 million worth of inventory, of commercial inventory time on WrestleMania. So that's going to explain a lot of, especially for us outside of the US that are not getting the Peacock version of the network, that, we got the lengthy profile features on Sasha Banks and Bobby Lashley that I think fills that time for international viewership. Yeah, it's not ideal for a wrestling show that you are watching, but this is also one that is, ad supported, that is going to have that component to it. And they're also trying to bring you back tomorrow and promoting all of tomorrow's matches on top of it. And then you have these video packages that, yes, we saw on SmackDown and we saw on the 2-hour show, but they're going to get their money's worth out of the production of these video packages. But there were a lot on this show.
Yeah, and I think we've seen this now for several pay-per-views that have taken place, but it's just a reminder now that at this point, as part of this Peacock deal, WrestleMania and all their pay-per-views are not exactly commercial free. Yeah, you might, if you pay for a certain tier, you might not actually see ads, but the spaces between the action is going to be different from this point on, or at least from whenever they sign with Peacock on. And so people who are wondering, well, why couldn't they have cut one of these, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar packages to fit the New Day match in? These commercial breaks had to be there.
That's it, and it's also the mindset too of, well, you're also not paying $60 anymore for WrestleMania. You're getting it for a great reduced fee. Now that is not new to Peacock. That's been a staple since they moved to the network. But I mean, that's just a reality of things, that the commercial inventory, that is not something that they're going to drop just so they can squeeze in time to fit a tag match in. Becky Lynch against Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship. We had two incredible entrances here. Becky comes out. They had very much a Marvel-inspired video for Becky Lynch to set up her arrival, as a vehicle drives up on the stage and the driver opens the door as Becky comes out, and she, between the hair and the red makeup, total David Bowie vibe. I thought it looked really cool.
David Bowie vibe, Kiddio vibe, John. For Canadians out there.
That's definitely a range, but yes, Kiddio was the distant cousin of David Bowie.
She looked awesome. She looked like somebody who could have shown up in All Japan Women's Dream Slam. It was that out there and that cool. We've seen Becky try to play with her looks every single week, and I felt like tonight she completed it. The eye makeup I thought was great.
And then, not to be outdone, the Texas Southern University Marching Band takes over the stage, and they start playing, and this is just awesome.
I got chills, man. It
was incredible.
Fantastic.
This was a total, unbelievable production. Just really incredible. And then what I really enjoyed was her theme plays, and then the marching band is playing and accentuating the theme, having both play. You would think, is that going to work? It was tremendous. This was such an awesome, this was by far the best entrance of any of the WrestleMania entrances this year. To me, this was an all-time great WrestleMania entrance.
This was great. Downstate was pretty great too, though, John. We'll compare and contrast. But for a wrestler that we knew was coming in here, It was fantastic. It was a great WrestleMania level entrance. Yeah.
Like the point of these are, by the time the match starts, like you make it feel like the biggest match possible. This match felt bigger than it did an hour before the match.
Totally.
It just felt like a big match by the time the bell rings.
We criticize WWE a lot, of course, but you cannot fuck with them when it comes to this level of spectacle and this level of presentation. They know how to do this. They know the appropriate amount of time to wait for those gaps before playing the songs. They know the right amount of time to put the lights down before you do all of this. Their production is incredible, and you got to see it in full force tonight.
9 times out of 10, it's great. And then 1 time out of 10,
shaky cam, all this bullshit. Yeah.
Well, or a chainsaw with protective glasses to go through foam.
NXT budget.
It was an attempt. So they start the match with Becky going for the manhandle slam, the perfect way to start this match, and it's avoided.
Calling back to the SummerSlam finish, of course.
Yes, the 26-second finish, and instead Belair stops her. She goes for the KOD with Becky landing on her feet, and then she hits the manhandle slam, and Belair kicks out at 2. I thought a tremendous start, like the best way to start this match.
Immediately sucked this crowd in. Everybody got it. Everybody understood the reference to the SummerSlam match, and from this point on, they worked like a finish level pace throughout almost the entire match.
Yeah, they went 19 minutes. We saw unorthodox stuff from Becky. She went for a moonsault off the top, and then she's dragging Belair by her braid on the floor, and Belair gets sent into the steps, and her throat is sent into the rope, so playing off of the television angle, allowing Becky to hit a guillotine leg drop, and then both go over the top to the floor. Belair later goes for the handspring moonsault for a 2 count, and then they're on the turnbuckle, and Belair hits Colt Cabana's Chicago skyline, where she has her on the shoulders and drops her onto the top turnbuckle and follows with a 450 splash. Later, Becky is on the top turnbuckle and hits the Molly go round, which they were trying to describe this in so many different ways.
She didn't exactly make contact like a Molly go round. Like
she didn't fully go around because her foot blasted Belair right in the face. And they showed the replay of this. And this was, honestly, if this were like a shoot move, that's what you'd be going for, like rather than just the posterior.
Totally, yeah. Which Jimmy Smith tried to give us the technical term for it, which I think was like rolling thunder kick, like I guess RVD's what RVD named it after, perhaps, I don't know. But I'm totally fine whenever they play replays like this, because in the context of the match, it absolutely makes sense why this worked out better for her.
So Belair's reeling from that, but comes back with another handspring moonsault, landing on the knees. Belair lifts her for the KOD, but Becky is holding on to the rope for all it's worth, and so she gets tossed over the top with the KOD to the floor. They fight, and Belair is sent into the post and is hit with a manhandle slam onto the steps, and the count is going. And this is one of those instances where the 20 count is so superior. She's like out of it at like 8, and then hits 9, and boom, she gets like back in. But it was still dramatic, and the crowd reacted big when Belair got into the ring, and she lifts Belair again, trying for one last manhandle slam, and Belair counters it with a backflip out of the corner, lifts her up, and hits the KODEO for the finish at 19 minutes and 8 seconds. Belair wins a terrific match, and for the second year in a row, she wins a version of the women's championship. It was the SmackDown title last year and the Raw women's title this year.
This match was fantastic. Absolutely. And depending on who you ask, if you ask me, it was the match of the night. I loved it. They had this crowd from the beginning to the end. First of all, going back to SummerSlam, that was a decision that was met with a lot of criticism. And even now, seeing the full picture and the full story that they told, I think you could still question whether or not it was the right move to have Bianca, lose so quickly, and then basically kind of have her, not doing a whole lot for the better part of 6 months. But
I think what's also forgotten in that is that a lot of people are going back to that and saying, oh, you have to wait for it to play out. A lot of that anger that night was that you had promoted the rematch of the main event of WrestleMania. And even Becky in an interview this week said she was contacted on Monday where they were told we can't do this match. And we promoted it right up until match time. And you took that away from people. So not only did you do this took the match away that you advertised. You didn't replace it with something. You did an angle instead of it. So that was also like, it was just false advertising on top of it that I think rubbed people the wrong way. Just the same as if they did this rematch at SummerSlam this year, and just Becky can't do the match, but she's going to do all the media leading up to it, even though the match is not happening. So I think that was a part of it as well that I think upset people.
Agreed. Totally agreed. But strictly speaking about the creative decision to have Bianca Belair lose, in however many seconds, again, it's to be debated, but I feel like it absolutely contributed to the atmosphere and the excitement that we felt trying to see Bianca Belair get that win back and try to get that championship back tonight, because all of that frustration that was built up from August was released tonight. In that one moment when she got that pinfall, it helped this crowd get completely attached into this match for the babyface to want to succeed. It worked. And we can't say this time that it's, it was a Daniel Bryan situation that they didn't plan for. This was something they planned for from August, this particular moment of having Bianca Belair being crowned at WrestleMania. So I think we have to give him some credit, a lot of credit, actually, and especially Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, because they executed the plan to a T. The atmosphere was incredible. They wrestled like fast for like 90% of this match, never lost this crowd. Yes, there might have been some botches, but there was nothing they couldn't recover from, nothing that derailed this match whatsoever. Fantastic performance.
It was great. I thought this was like certainly at this point, like, the show to me went to another level. This was just a terrific title match on this show.
Which one did you like more, this match or last year's Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks match?
I feel this probably there was so much like specialness attached to last year's match that I think was just like just the feeling people had watching it. I would definitely have to go back and watch it. My gut reaction is probably this was the better match, although I think last year's was probably going to be the more memorable one to most.
My gut reaction is actually the other way around, actually. Like, I mean, and again, so much of that I think is dependent on your personal attachment to the match itself. But the fact that we could even consider the two being candidates of this same question, knowing how many
they're two
love.
excellent matches. Like, there isn't a wrong answer to me of like whichever one you prefer.
And of
there's
course,
certainly the recency of just watching this one.
There is, absolutely. But knowing that, I did put a Twitter poll, very scientific, of course, up there, asking people which one they thought was better. And I mean, I was at least surprised because I thought recency bias would really run away with it. But it's a lot closer than I thought. At the moment, 41.1% prefer the Sasha Banks match from last year, while 58.9% prefer Becky.
It's not only it was a very good match last year, but it's also been treated as such in WWE. Like, they have played that match up. It's not one that like you're scratching your head to remember it. Like, it's one of those matches that they have promoted as a major WrestleMania match. So that's going to play into things too. But there you go. That is the answer from Wade's Twitter. That's the answer.
Official. Printed.
So then we go into the next match, and we've got like a choir on the stage humming Seth Rollins' theme. So sometimes when you do like an entrance like this, the default is, oh my God, it's different, it's great. I did not think that with this one.
I mean, coming off of the Bianca Belair entrance, like seeing a full marching band, to, I'm sure this choir is probably like, they probably do great work, but this, they felt like, like a community gym, of hobbyists who might sing during Christmas when they came out here to do this. Like, it felt so low budget compared to the previous two. So it might have just been, a fact of poor placement, but yeah, it was not that special.
Seth comes out in this insane giant blue robe. I mean, his outfit was just something else. He comes out and he's in, and they're just milking this. They're waiting, and Seth is getting impatient. The lights slowly go out. It's completely dark.
Let me just say, again, talking about WWE production, to me, this was art. The way, like, we all know what's about to happen, but the way that they managed to just play with our expectations by delaying that moment. I would love, what AEW did with the CM Punk return? How they like showed us the behind the scenes camera
yes.
from the truck. I would love it if, like, we got to see something like that. And yes, like, I know people have their opinions about Kevin Dunn, but like when it comes to this shit, like this team is incredible. And that I don't think WWE will ever like take us behind the curtain that much, but again, they should be commended because this was perfect.
Yeah. So the lights go out, and then Downstate makes its arrival at WrestleMania as Kingdom roars throughout AT&T Stadium, and elevating from underneath the stage is Cody Rhodes, blonde hair, neck tattoo. It's full on American Nightmare Cody Rhodes.
It is totally like the WWE and Vince McMahon's MO to completely like, or at least alter and tweak other people's creations that they didn't originate. We think back to like Diamond Dallas Page or the entire Invasion, or like just think about anybody that really came from WCW. There's always going to be some alteration, whether it be Goldberg's trunks or like, the NWO suddenly like being a team that like, we hadn't seen paired together in quite some time. They kept this Cody presentation exactly the same, or as close to it as they possibly could, from the last time we saw him show up in AEW to today. They did not change the music. They didn't change the guy's robe. They kept his elevator entrance, dude. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was like it was taking the AEW version of Cody Rhodes and transplanting it into WWE. So
like to me, it was like, it was like seeing Tobey Maguire show up from like, the 2000 Spider-Man to like, No Way Home. It was like, it would be like seeing Henry Cavill travel from the DCEU universe to an MCU film.
So he comes out. It's a gigantic reception for Cody Rhodes, his first appearance at WrestleMania since the last one at AT&T Stadium when he was Stardust in a ladder match.
Wow. Okay. Which Zack Ryder won?
That Zack Ryder won, correct. So he comes out, and it's a huge reaction. The announcers are going crazy. And then I thought this was a tough task, because when you do a giant surprise like this, and then you want to go out and do like a big epic match, that is very tough to do, because at this point, there's the fan that just wants to see Cody just run through the guy, and it's like you're in the adulation of the entrance and the guys here, and then you want to get people into a match. That is a transition that you have to take your audience on. And they went out, and dude, for 21 minutes they had this crowd from start to finish, and they did not tire midway through this. It was this was like a big Cody pay-per-view style match where we're going to do all the kickouts, we're going to do all the spectacular stuff, and he had an incredible opponent here in Seth Rollins to do that type of match with.
Completely agreed. Yeah, this to me was like the second shock of this entire segment. Not just the fact that he came out completely a carryover completely from his AEW routine, but he had like a match that to me felt very much like it could have taken place on an AEW pay-per-view, complete with like callbacks to that he developed in AEW. Like him doing the pedigree is not something he's never done in the WWE, but teased it the same way that he would have, if it was a match against who was his last opponent?
Sammy Guevara.
Like it felt a direct translation.
Yeah, and the Tiger Driver 98 was renamed the Powerbomb.
Well, he can't exactly do the Tiger Driver here. Well, it wasn't a driver, like it is. It was more so a suplex this time.
More so, yeah, where he's like dropping him like on the back. At the beginning, he does the Stardust cartwheel, and Graves pretty much explained he was like cleansing it from his system.
I thought Graves did a hell of a job in this match. He was great. He's clearly somebody who's been following Cody throughout his AEW run, so he was able to, I think, make plenty of references, at least to the spots that he was developed there. Like, he mentioned Undeniable, at some point. He knew all the moves in both of their arsenals, of course, and I thought he did a great job.
Graves was very good here. Early on, Pedigree and Stomp are blocked, and they're battling and crash over the top to the floor. Rollins, at one point, Rhodes takes his arm and just drives the shoulder into the mat, and Rhodes is grabbing hold of his ribs after a high cross is met with a drop kick, and so Rollins is working on him with a bear hug. At one point, gets in the line, "Welcome back to the big leagues, bitch." and he continues to work on the ribs. Cody did a moonsault off of the top, and it just keeps escalating and escalating. Rollins hits that great-looking springboard knee, Falcon Arrow for a 2 count, and Cody continues to avoid a pair of stomps. Crossroads gets countered and then finally hits one, and it's a near fall. And this takes the crowd to another level, seeing the Crossroads being kicked out from. Rollins hit an inverted superplex from the top and followed that with like a giant reverse Bloody Sunday for a 2 count. Then he goes for the Phoenix Splash, misses that. He goes for the pedigree. It's countered, and Cody gets the underhooks. And he goes for the Tiger Powerbomb 22.
His variation of it, and like he's been doing the double underhook teases, of course, throughout his AEW run, never executing a pedigree to my knowledge, and always going for like a Tiger Driver, like the J Driller, basically, like
right.
that sort of move. Here he obviously can't do it, so he turned it into a little kind of suplex type of deal, and this crowd completely, like, they knew what was going on.
Then he hit a Cody cutter off of the top for a 2 count. Rollins hits him with the pedigree for a near fall, and this place goes nuts for the pedigree kick out from Cody.
A lot of significance, attached to that move, because it's part of the repertoire, and that Triple H connection is attached to both of these men. And of course, with his recent retirement, like, the more you think about it, the more perfect this pairing is.
And then Kawada kicks from Rollins. Rhodes grabs hold of him. 1 Crossroads, 2 Crossroads, and he's setting up for a 3rd, but he starts delivering the dusty jabs and hits him with the bionic elbow before hitting the 3rd and final Crossroads to win the match in 21 minutes and 33 seconds. This was spectacular.
It was a hell of a match, man. And it's so cliche, but this entire presentation was a hell of a WrestleMania moment.
This was like this hour of WrestleMania, that last match and this one, that's a pretty high hour of start to finish.
Is this the best 1-2 combination we've seen of matches out of WrestleMania?
17 and 19 had some really great ones. I'd certainly have to go back and look at them. This is pretty high.
I mean like 2 matches back to back.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Like those shows were like pretty stacked, but this was a hell of a match to have to follow. Like, you did have the Cody surprise. Like, I wasn't worried about them following it. But also, this crowd is spent from just reacting to him, and then they're going 21 minutes. Like, and they could have said
they're spent from Becky and Bianca as well.
They're doing that as well. Becky and Bianca was to me, it was excellent. This was my match of the show. I just thought this was just a very, very high tier wrestling match. It was Seth was fantastic. Cody, if you want to take nothing away from this, the one major point is this guy's coming in as a major guy, and he was treated as such here. And just from the presentation, the handling of it, and how this was structured, I mean, you can see that this is someone of priority coming in, at least right now.
Anybody who's followed him for the past, 3, 4, 5 years knows that the man is a capable main eventer, somebody who can headline a pay-per-view, somebody who could possibly headline a WrestleMania. The biggest question would be whether or not Vince McMahon saw him as that person. And at least upon return tonight, even though this wasn't the main event, the guy gave him a presentation like he was a main eventer. Gave him a win over Seth Rollins, which, I mean, honestly, today that maybe doesn't mean as much as it did. But still, like, a 20-minute match, sight unseen to this audience, it could have failed, John. A good chunk of this audience could have not reacted at all. But I think it's a real testament to AEW, to be honest with you, because everybody recognized who this person was. They knew what he was up to. They recognized his moves and entrance from AEW. This was an entrance created for AEW fans, not your casual WWE viewer who only watches once a year. They would have been completely lost, but there were enough people who recognized what was going on here to completely make this feel very special. So all the credit to them for letting him seemingly have full autonomy to present his character on this screen.
As soon as he came out, Variety posted their interview with Cody that they conducted several days ago, talking about coming back here, and just some quotes from that interview. He said, It seems like kind of a culmination of my whole career, but I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to put any hyperbole there, but it's the biggest crowd in wrestling. It's returning to me in something that I built and nobody else built, and that's the ultimate vindication. I told Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and Nick Khan, this very small circle of individuals, I told them what I truly believe, and it's that I'm the best wrestler in the world. And to go further with it, I actually don't think there's a close second. But with that said, the opportunity now exists to prove it, and that's what I'm most excited about. And when asked about AEW, he said, I chose to remain silent about my departure from AEW, and I'm going to keep my word on that. There's no shoot interview. There's no nefarious tale that's going to be told. There were all of these different theories, and none of them are correct. I mean, there were things about money and creative control. They were printed as fact, and it's been a very difficult 2 months to see that, when the reality is it was just time. It was a personal matter, and we could not move past it. I have nothing but respect for Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, and Kenny Omega. I'm rooting for Tony Khan. His name is going to be in the history books as someone who helped to bankroll and support this entire alternative and revolution that AEW became, but for me, it was just time to move on. I get an opportunity at my dream, I get another chance at it, and you really can't leave any stone unturned with that. So certainly not, taking any shots at this point to AEW and
giving some clarity about the situation. He's been completely silent. Some, yeah. And I mean, of course, like, stories can change. We may never know the exact reasons why he left, but he's doing a lot of interviews, I believe. Even
the
right
Ringer's
now,
already got one up with him. Was done minutes after the match. So
okay. So now we get to kind of dig in and analyze this Cody transition a little bit more. But
they've got the merchandise up. Cody's
it's a terrible shirt, hideous.
Yeah, not one that I think Braden would give the thumbs up to.
It's on brand.
His PR team did put out some kind of press release calling it like a multi-year deal, which I think everyone would have assumed for this one. But yeah, I mean, he is going to be one of the most analyzed figures in all of wrestling for the next couple of months to see where he is, because he could not have come in any hotter than how he did tonight, getting a major win, tearing the house down. And this is a company that they greatly need main event stars. They're also at a situation where they will be just fine if they bungle it at the same time. So he's going to be a very, very interesting figure to watch. Look at this. Are you sure? Aren't you sad your birthday just passed?
Yeah, I didn't know that you could make that neck tattoo look any worse, but man, they made this shirt. It is it's gonna sell a lot, I'll say that. After this appearance tonight, no matter how we may analyze the situation, I have to imagine he feels pretty happy about what he got to achieve tonight. Being able to have a 20-minute highlighted WrestleMania match, an excellent WrestleMania match to some people, to many people, match of the night, and suddenly feeling like a big star, maybe even the biggest in the industry right now. And that's certainly a far cry from where he was in AEW when he left. Of course, the question is, in 2 months' time, in 3 months' time, when the luster wears off, where's Cody Rhodes going to be?
It's a great question. He is coming in. It's a system that he knows, that I think he's coming in with, putting out that comment that I feel I am the best wrestler in the world. People can scoff at that comment. That is the kind of confidence that you pretty much have to project at this level for Vince McMahon to see you in that light. And that is going to be a welcome attitude if he's coming in and believing that I am this benchmark to come in and be something big. 6 months from now, he could be anywhere. Who knows where he is going to be in terms of this? You cannot predict it, but he got off to a great start. That's the best you can do.
You can argue that trying to shake that stigma is tougher because you're with people now that saw you grow up from when you were nothing, when you're just a kid, coming up through their system. So can he be like a Drew McIntyre and shed whatever he had, whatever image that they had of him prior? I'd say tonight was a very, very good start. I don't know if it could have gone any better for him.
And he's a great promo, which also helps. That can be difficult in a WWE system, but again, it's going to be interesting to see what leeway he gets. It's going to be a fascinating person to watch. The
other thing for me, that's a major talking point coming out of this, is that to me, his authentic presentation from his AEW self to tonight, to me, sent a very strong message to people like an MJF, people that are outside of their system, that, hey, if you're a big enough star, if we have the trust in you, you can be yourself. You don't have to, conform to what we think of you. But, and again, this can all change like by tomorrow. It can change certainly in 2 months and 3 months. But at least tonight, they gave the impression that you could be yourself.
I would say that there are two other examples of that sends a message to your WWE talent that is looking elsewhere, and that is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yes.
So that was the Cody portion of the show. They brought out all of the Hall of Fame inductees with a huge response for The Undertaker, who walked out to his theme. And then they gave the update on Rick Boogs, and then gave the announced attendance of 77,899. WrestleTix just posted their last count they had was at 65,719. So that's the figure that WrestleTix has.
So about 12,000 people working in the building.
You know what? Those popcorn doesn't pop itself. Okay.
Yeah.
You gotta man those vending systems.
I would actually love to know what that number would actually be of like people just working.
It's also sweet numbers too. So like that is a number in there as well. Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So at this point, like you can see, like they were going to go Charlotte Ronda, the New Day match, and then close with Austin and Owens. But of course, time would cut out the middle there. So Rousey early on is going for the ankle lock and then for a triangle, and it was just constant going for the ankle and Flair avoiding it. And Rousey, she went for something off of the middle turnbuckle. Cole called it a modified tornado DDT. It looked more like a flatliner she hit. She hit the Piper's Pit, and then Flair avoids the armbar and drops her with a boot. And then Rousey hit this beautiful looking power slam. Like she just with her hip movement, this looked great, this power slam. And then Piper's Pit gets blocked, rolls to the ankle lock, and it's reversed by Flair, and she applies an ankle lock onto Rousey. Rousey tries for the triangle and sends Charlotte into the bottom turnbuckle with the back of her head smashing into it. Again, we go back to the ankle lock, and she's torquing on it. Flair kicks free, lowers the knee pad, and she's going for the figure eight, but Ronda counters it to the armbar, back to the figure four position, and she gets the figure eight, which Rousey is eventually able to reverse, and Rousey gets to the floor. So that was a really nice sequence of like submissions and reversals. Flair then gets flipped off of the apron, and man, she crashed onto the floor. It made the largest thud as she landed, and she caught Rousey, exploded her into the barricade, and then we go into the ring, another Piper's Pit, but Flair gets her foot on the rope, and the referee counts 3, but he waves it off, having seen the foot on the rope, and Ronda is protesting to Charles Robinson, and then a natural selection is hit, but Rousey kicks Flair, and she ends up spearing Charles Robinson. Has that ever happened to you where you've just got hit from behind and you spear somebody?
I don't know if I've gotten hit from behind before, so I'm sure physics dictates that this will always happen.
Rousey applies the armbar and Charlotte taps, but the referee is down. So Rousey goes to revive Robinson and then gets blasted with a boot, and Charlotte pins her in 18 minutes and 21 seconds, and she's holding her arm, selling the armbar, and I can't say I was stunned by the outcome. I think this is a program, and I mean, this outcome, I think, pretty much solidifies it, that this is going to be a series of matches between these two, and Charlotte wins the first one, and they'll continue this.
Given that we have, WrestleMania and Backlash coming pretty soon, I guess I figured at least one of these, two women's championships won't change hands so that we have one person continuing the chase, and I thought for sure it was going to be Bianca, because I thought they wanted, that closing shot of Ronda with the championships on WrestleMania. But thankfully they thought otherwise and flipped that around. And instead it looks like it'll probably be Ronda, doing the rematch with Charlotte. At least,
and probably someone in the ultimate match having to submit to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting, and I certainly don't fault it. I think overall it was these two worked incredibly hard. Again, it was a pretty ambitious match considering I think the level that Ronda has been in since she's come back. I thought they tried a lot of very ambitious spots, including some really nice submission entries and reversals. There was, the unfortunate kind of moonsault, the Andrade moonsault attempt that like Charlotte unfortunately just completely overshot in the middle there. But otherwise, like pretty decent. I think it was, though, largely a match that was hurt overall by like the matchmaking and the build, because you compare this to Bianca and versus Becky, it shows you how important it is to have a strong baby face that the crowd wants to see win. And I just didn't necessarily get the sense that, this audience gave a shit whether or not Ronda won or lost this challenge. And I think it overall kind of diminished maybe some of the buzz of the match. And while I found the match captivating, like, my overall enjoyment and memory of it isn't as significant, compared to some other matches on the show.
Yeah, I thought it was a good match, but I'm not going to the level of great. And they had, they had 2 big matches to follow, but that's the position you're in this kind of a situation. You're going on late at WrestleMania, you got to follow a lot of stuff.
So, I mean, should it have been in this spot?
I guess in hindsight, you could argue, but
we all knew that, though. We all knew that the interest was not there, like, for this versus Becky versus Bianca.
It could have been a tough situation as well if like Becky and Bel-Air were following like that whole Cody stuff. Like it's tough. The crowd was a bit down for this one, but I still think they were engaged in this one. But to me, I think they certainly have a better match in them than this one. I will say this, like, we had those questions about Ronda and having to do a lengthy match. She did 18 minutes here. Was it perfect? Far from it, but it was it was a good performance that she had, and it's the longest we have seen her in a single situation. It's the longest match she's had, period, since she's come back.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, a ton of respect for somebody like dealing with a newborn and trying to build up to enough cardio to get up into this phase. Like, it's
like physically,
she
looked great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They ran the promo for WrestleMania next year, April 1st and April 2nd, and this is when the news of Kingston and Woods versus Sheamus and Ridge Holland getting cut. And I haven't checked anything. You would assume that they fit this onto the show somewhere tomorrow.
I feel like that would be a safe assumption, because I think it would be incredibly... Listen, like, this might be a hot take, but I was not upset about this.
Listen, this was a match that you could certainly argue was like the least... I would say that this was definitely below McIntyre and Corbin.
The appeal of the match from the get-go when they planned it was that this was to be a reunion of the New Day. And when Big E was taken out, unfortunately, like, it kind of took a lot of the luster out of it. And they could have, I think, maybe, I don't want to say, like, they could have built on the story perhaps of the revenge a little bit more, but it just didn't get to that level. And if you're talking about a show like that is stacked with so much stuff already,
this was designed to be a come down match. This was not put second from the top because it was the second hottest program. This was a come down from the women's title match and Austin. So they were not treating this as an important match on the show. And unfortunately, you feel awful for the performers that they get cut at the last minute. Of course, that goes without saying. But let's not pretend that this was a match that people were paying to see. They were not.
You feel bad for the performers who are dressed up and ready to go. You feel bad for the people that are New Day fans that specifically may have paid for a ticket to see them tonight. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to have something go, I would have kept at least, like, I think it's more important to tell the video stories of the main events and the matches that you are presenting versus having just another meaningless match that's out there just to make some people happy, especially when you can have this match the next day, full on presentation, and they get their time. So we have something to complain about perhaps if they get cut tomorrow, but I feel pretty confident that we'll see them tomorrow.
Yeah, I would too. I would also imagine, though, that tomorrow's show is probably timed out by this point as well. Like, look at tonight.
Kickoff.
The kickoff. You have 2 hours essentially to work with, and that's probably where you would slot this in, because the main show, it's like, okay, well, then we got to take time out from other matches, and I'm sure no one wants to give up time at WrestleMania. So you have the kickoff. That's when I would do it.
It's not the same, everybody, but, like, listen, we wouldn't be talking about this match even if it did take place tonight. Like, and I don't think they should be in the business of making every single person happy that's on the roster. What makes the best show?
Listen, that's when we've had these marathon shows, people have complained there's too much on there. But when you get to specific people, no one wants to cut anyone. Well, it's like, you've got to make a choice. Do you want a better digestible show? Because if you do, it means a lot of performers are not going to get onto the biggest show or shows of the year. And this was one where, I mean, it was 7 matches plus a big segment. It was not a bloated show, like, numerically, but still, stuff runs long. Packages are...
We did end up having 7 matches, didn't we?
We ended up with 7 when Austin and Owens became an actual match. Kevin Owens comes out, and this crowd is booing him. He is coming out. I mean, it was really something to watch. from someone that I interviewed outside of the Ted Reeve Arena after he won the ROH title at Border Wars, and he's walking out, and here he is, like the pinnacle of his career is happening. Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to feel good for someone just in this position, and someone who I am sure faced a lot of negativity throughout his career. That, I mean, it was the talk of like, would WWE even sign this guy? Was the talk for years, that he couldn't even get in the door. I mean, it's a really remarkable story. That, I mean, this may be the climax of this guy's career.
We saw this guy wrestle in St. John's Hall for UWA as Mr. Wrestling Kevin Steen, dude. Like, can you believe that? We saw him in Mississauga. We followed him throughout his entire career, basically. Yeah. And tonight he main evented WrestleMania against Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, that's a thrill for me. I can't imagine being him and what it's like, to suddenly main event WrestleMania against Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Huge. Like it was a very cool moment to watch. So Owens comes out and everybody is booing, and he gets into the ring. The KO set is there. He said a lot of bad things about Texas and Steve Austin. He brings up that if the U.S. was a human body, Texas would be its ass. And I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize for telling the truth about your pathetic state. I've been here for a couple of days. It's even worse than I remember. And I'll bring my guest out when I feel like it, because it's my show. This guy, Steve Austin, is the worst role model in the history of WWE. And when he comes out here, he's going to sit in this chair, and I'm going to tell him he sucks. And he's not going to do a thing about it. And as he goes to continue his tirade, Austin's theme hits. And dude, it was, of all the reactions tonight, this one trumped them all. This was just gigantic. When he walked out, this place exploded. Austin walks out with the jean shorts, the trademark knee braces, and an Austin 316 shirt, and he just soaks it all in. He's on the stage, walking back and forth, and then he goes backstage, and he returns on the ATV, and he just roars down this stage with it. Owens is the one to finally cut the music as Austin's in the ring and tells Austin to take a seat. Austin responds, telling Kevin Owens that he looks like a jackass who's been running down Texas. And Owens explains his rationale for hating Texas. It's hot in the summer. The land is flat and uninspiring, unlike Canada. You wear stupid hats in this state, belt buckles. If I grew up here, I would have just moved to Mexico. It's right there. The crowd starts chanting asshole at him, and he goes on to tell Austin that he is a distinguished French Canadian. Like, just what could possibly anger this Texas crowd more than a distinguished French Canadian? But he explains he tricked Austin. He's not here to talk. He's looking for a fight. And he challenges Austin. He knows it's been 19 years since his last match. You have shot knees, a shot back, and a shot neck. But other than that, you're fine. And there's no reason for you to turn this down. And I suggest we have a no-holds-barred match. But I know that you're looking at me, and you can't beat this guy. So why don't you take your beer and your golf cart and go back to your stupid ranch? And Austin, he's boiling. He's sitting here. The crowd is going nuts for him. And he says, I had my first match in Dallas. Maybe I could have my last match in Dallas. He asks the crowd, hell yeah. And he is ready to take out this sack of shit.
Listen, okay, this was not the best material that I've ever heard from a heel insulting somebody's hometown. It was not the best way that I've heard somebody antagonize another wrestler into a match. It was pretty much like pretty basic stuff, and
all this was doing was
didn't
making
matter.
The fans
it didn't
wait
matter.
To anticipate what they knew was going to happen.
He could have come out and like farted for like 5 minutes. I would have been just as excited, because I knew at some point Steve Austin was going to get physical at some some significant level in the main event of WrestleMania. So it's all to say, like, this build has been about as basic of a generic wrestling build as you could have had. Like, I hate your hometown, and why do I hate it? Because of these signature things that are attached to your hometown. But it didn't matter, because, again, it was just to make us delay and build anticipation for this moment.
Austin calls for a ref, and the bell rings, and this place is going nuts. Steve Austin's first match since March 30th of 2003, when we were in high school. And do you realize that when Steve Austin had his last match, he was our age.
Shut the fuck up. Oh my God, that is weird.
The age game's the worst. It's just the worst.
Oh man, I hate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're really making me assess what I've accomplished thus far.
As 1-year-old Julia Hart was, I'm sure, watching on pay-per-view.
Just stop. Can you just, please?
So Austin just attacks him with strikes. He's stomping him in the corner. I mean, he's going at like, it's not like a rapid pace here at the beginning. He's really just, I think, kind of getting acclimated to the fact that he's doing physicality here. There was a very light Irish whip reversal on the floor, and
the slow pace I felt like was intentional to start, don't you think? Because he ended up going pretty fast with the stomp.
He picked up on the stomp. It was more so the Irish whip on the floor. It was like he did a reversal, and it was just like, you can see, like, this is a guy that had like spinal stenosis. You know what I mean? Like, this is someone that is not looks fantastic. He looks in tremendous shape at 57.
But kept the shirt on. We should say.
Did keep the shirt on. You're right. Yeah, and they're brawling on the floor. Dude, Kevin Owens. I mean, goddamn, he takes an inside out lariat. This was the structure of the match. Steve, you do whatever, and I'm going to make you throw a 5. I'm going to make it look like a 20. Okay. Yeah. That's what this is going to look like. I'm going to do everything in my power to make you look like Steve Austin. This was like the Crusher coming back in Milwaukee, or Jackie Fargo coming out of retirement. Like, this was just the legend coming back, and you had a heel that was going to bump his ass off for Steve Austin.
Completely. Yeah, that was Kevin Owens' job tonight. You know, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say like that this was like Kevin Owens wrestling this wrestler, because it would be an insult to Steve Austin. Steve Austin gave a lot, but it was kind of like Steve Austin almost wrestling the Invisible Man here, because he did everything for this dude to make him look incredible, and he deserves all the accolades.
They did more than I expected. Like, the vertical suplexes on the floor that Austin took when they like, I did not expect to see something like that. Austin, I mean, this was probably every wrestling fan's most enjoyable product placement, because he just drank beer after beer of his new Stone Cold Lager, whatever it's called.
It's great product placement. It's also a great way to stay hydrated.
Yes. Does beer work when you're in the midst of an athletic endeavor?
Beer is a lot of content in beer is water. Yeah. But I mean, I guess
some carbs.
Right.
Yeah. So he just is drinking and drinking. Owens tries to leave on his ATV, and he can't get the thing to start. So Austin nails him, sits behind him, and drives this thing up the stage. I thought they were just going to crash into the set. I didn't know what they were going to do here. He stops it, and they fight on the stage, and we get more. We get 2 vertical suplexes on the stage, and then he rolls Owens down the ramp, has 2 more beers, and then in the ring, Owens catches him with a stunner. And dude, there were people in this crowd that believed that Steve Austin was going to get pinned with his stunner. He kicks out, and the crowd is cheering. He's alive. And
I wouldn't have put it past them to, I mean, yeah, now that I think about it.
There was no way they were beating Steve Austin with the stunner in Texas to close WrestleMania. There was no goddamn way that was happening. It's
to show you maybe how much I got sucked into all this, because I thought, oh, okay, yeah, well, he's putting over the guy who's sticking around. Why not? But no, you're right. There's no way.
Owens gets a chair, does the Kurt Angle special, misses, bounce off the rope, nails himself in the head, stunner, and Austin pins him in 13 minutes and 56 seconds. Afterwards, he's doing the beer celebration, hits Owens with another stunner, and the Texas officers come and escort Kevin Owens out. And Austin says it's good to be back in Texas. That's the bottom line. And then, as a make good for my money, the worst segment in Steve Austin's career was that 316 day in the empty Performance Center with Byron Saxton. He brought Byron in to give him a stunner to erase the memory of March 16th, 2020. And they can never reference that awful segment again. And then one of Steve's brothers got into the ring as well, and that's how the show ended. This was not about being like some great wrestling match. That's totally missing the point of this. This was an experience for every fan in this arena that loved this, that got to see something they did not expect in terms of an actual match. This was probably the pinnacle of Kevin Owens' career that he'll be talking about 40 years from now. And I mean, it was just like a great send-off to the show. It was its own thing. And this crowd, they were here to see Steve Austin. And they got way more than they bargained for.
Exactly. You underpromise and you overdeliver, which I think was the philosophy tonight. This was so much fun watching, John. Yes, it was not the best match of the show. Did Steve Austin look as good as he did 20 years ago? No. Nobody can, unless you're Chris Jericho, perhaps, you know. But
this was also not that performance where you come back and you regret doing it, which I'm sure was Steve's hesitancy.
Well, Brett, like, you know, that's Shawn Michaels, you know, for that matter, like in Saudi Arabia, absolutely. Like, all that aside, like, you're right. Like, this was the level of performance that I think was more than enough to.
Taking those vertical suplexes on his neck and back, like frankly, he did not need to do that. I don't think he needed to do that at all. That was certainly above and beyond what was called for here.
He didn't need to, but above everything, these two successfully for what was it, like 15 minutes, Sean?
It was just under 14 minutes, bell to bell.
For 15 minutes. I was as giddy as a little kid because I got to see Stone Cold Steve Austin in an official wrestling match in the main event of WrestleMania. You know, this to me is like, you know, it's like suddenly getting a new song by the Beatles. You know, like, yeah, it might not be as good as, like, you know, what's on Abbey Road, but it's still pretty damn cool, right? And you're going to remember it because it's Stone Cold Steve Austin, man. So they pulled it off, I thought. Hats off to Kevin Owens. I thought he earned every bit of that main event. I don't know if there was a better person to put in that position. And we, you know, like, I see this match, and, like, I think my expectations for, like, you know, what Steve Austin will do afterwards are a bit more tempered coming off of this. I don't think he's going to come back, like, for a run or anything like that. I don't even know if he's going to come back for another match. But for one night, he certainly did enough to, you know, create an incredible memory for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it totally delivered in terms of a big moment to end WrestleMania with. And I've got to say, like, for the first night of WrestleMania, I think between the Belair and Becky match, Cody and Seth, you got the big Austin match on top of it. Like, that was enough for me that I would peg this as like a thumbs up show just on those three things alone.
Yes, I really enjoyed this WrestleMania. Like, no doubt in my mind that it was a thumbs up show. You know, and in fact, I think limiting the show to what, like 7 matches and having one,
it made a
2,
big difference.
3.
I think if we had 14 matches, I think there would have been a lot of fatigue throughout this. And I think if you were, I think it would have been a lot tougher. I think it would have been a lot tougher if we were talking about like a 6.5 hour show, clocking in at like 13, 14 matches.
When we're strictly talking about in-ring content, I don't think there was anything bad. Well, okay. So one caveat, of course, being the Usos versus Nakamura and Boogs. And
which is almost an incomplete. It was like, you know, it was out of their control. I thought Corbin and McIntyre over-delivered what I expected. Mm-hmm. You got Logan Paul, who performed very well. For a celebrity match, I think no one was complaining about that. Then you have Becky and Belair, Rollins and Cody. You drop the tag match. Charlotte and Ronda, I think they have a better match in them, but that was hardly, like, perfectly satisfactory. Mm-hmm. And then you had the main event, which is going to be probably that and Cody the biggest memories of this show years from now.
Yeah, I thought pretty much everything over delivered, except for maybe if you want to maybe complain about that Ronda Charlotte match. Maybe that was either, to me that was about
there was rough elements to that match. Yeah,
that was my expectation level, right? But like everything else, like on the show, to me over delivered, and I can't. I think this was a great WrestleMania. I you know, absolutely. So
let's do a whole nother one tomorrow.
Well, that'll be the question. Can tomorrow now live up to tonight?
Yeah, is it going to be the did you notice on SmackDown that Pat McAfee, he just dropped WrestleMania and called Lesnar and Reigns the biggest match ever? It's not even the biggest WrestleMania match now. It's just like, well, why stop it there? We can just go all the way at this point. It's the go-home show.
Well, is it bigger than Edge versus Randy Orton? That's the question.
That's right. The most stupendous match.
We have a few super chats that I want to get to, and thank you all you guys for sticking around. I'm pretty sure we hit our record numbers for live viewers tonight, so thank you very much for everybody who's watching us at youtube.com. But the first comes to us in terms of super chats from Jake from the Windy City, who said $5 to say, to me, honestly, a night 2 isn't needed. The bar is set high tonight, and tomorrow sure has its hands full.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna announce that on Sunday. They're like, you know what, we're good. We'll see it Raw on Monday. I mean, it's like, just because tonight's show was well received. I mean, we'll see what they have tomorrow night to like tomorrow. They've got like a good show to follow, but at the same time, like Edge and AJ, I think people have very high expectations for that. Lesnar and Reigns has to be like, that really has to deliver with this kind of a build. There's no way around that. And then I guess, the questions remain about like the time that the triple threat match gets for the tag match. McAfee and Austin Theory, Knoxville and Sami Zayn. Like, those are, matches that I think McAfee and Austin Theory, I think they're in a good position. And Knoxville and Zayn is going to come down to how that match is structured. But I'm not dreading tomorrow's show by any stretch.
Yeah, I'm not either. I think they'll do a good job, honestly. Like AJ and Edge is going to be good. I think Pat McAfee again will probably impress a whole lot of people. Even like Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. Like, for a tag team belt that I don't care much about, I think in ring you can depend on this crew to like definitely deliver. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Again, I'm buzzed. So we go up next to Plethora, who sends a $5 super chat, who says, do you go right to it when Iron is hot, or do you wait and build it for a SummerSlam? Unfortunately, I'm not sure what you are referring to, Plethora. So if you are still in the chat room, you can let us know. Do you have? I have no idea.
I mean, maybe he's talking about Cody in terms of like a title program, or I'm sorry, I don't know what he's referring to.
If you're still there, just let us know, Plethora, and we'll get to your question then. And then we go to David Rodriguez with the $2 super chat, who says, where do you think Cody ends up, Raw or SmackDown?
It sounds like Raw. That seems to be where he is earmarked for.
Do you continue the program with Seth?
I think you could do another match between them. You have the natural that, Seth wasn't prepared, and you can just shoot an angle on Monday. He attacks Cody or something like that. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. Like, you're coming off an incredible match, so I don't think there's going to be complaints if they stretch this out and get another match out of them. If you're not in any rush with Cody, like, he has lots of people to work with, like, you could do another one with Seth for the time being.
All right, coming up next, we go to some phone calls. Of course, this is something we allow all of our double plus tier patrons at Post Wrestling Cafe to be able to take part in for our pay-per-view shows. And if you are there, you can find the link in your emails. And first, I'm going to go to you, Chris, from London. So, Chris, what did you think of WrestleMania?
Well, just to say, a great pleasure to be speaking to you both. I've been a long-time listener back to the Law about 8 years ago. I'm normally watching and listening from London, but I'm in Seattle with family, so opportunity to actually give you a call. I massively exceeded expectations. I think it's what you said previously, where we know what the production is going to be like. We've seen it all before. And you have that initial pizzazz, and you're like, okay, let's see what we've got. And then you get the first few matches, and it slows down, and then, the whole AEW feel about, you get used to a certain level of expectation of match, and then you're just not getting that at all for the first few, regardless of that. I've been to WrestleManias recently, and been to those 7-hour events. I was so glad that it was a shorter event, but man, the Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair match was just immediately should I say AEW pay-per-view standard? No doubt about it. It was fantastic. The pacing of it was great. And from there on, the match after it as well, we knew, we were hoping for Cody to be treated with respect, and to get AEW Cody and to get 20 minutes against Seth Rollins, and they both just gave it. Certainly, I would say that the Becky Lynch Bianca Belair match was the match of the night for me. But everything after that, I thought was perfectly acceptable. Loved the Stone Cold Steve Austin stuff at the end. There were a few minutes at the first minute of the match when they was doing a bit of stomping in the corner. I was like, oh, this could go one way or the other here. This could look a little bit tired. But I think then, like you say, bit of smoke and mirrors. Kevin Owens bounced like an absolute boss. I really enjoyed it. It's funny you actually said about, have you seen like in recent times, like a really good back-to-back 1-2. My brother and I were at the Orlando one 5 years ago, and we got AJ Styles and Shane McMahon, followed by Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. And that was like match 1 and 2 of like 12. And I was really worried that, they had at least 2 matches back to back. At the beginning now, is this going to now kind of cause a bit of a flagging that we've got a little bit too much in one go? But I think the 7 matches, having them right in the middle of the event, I couldn't have hoped for more, really. I really enjoyed the show all the way along. I was actually watching on Peacock, so it would have ground me into the ground. I don't know what would have been worse, these constant adverts, all these promo videos that you were seeing in the international feed. I'm not too sure what would have been better. But yeah, I think we know what we're getting from now. But I just thought it was just a far exceeded expectations, and yeah, it was just really great. So particularly also love your review as well. You always do such a great job. I actually upgraded to double just so I could actually give you a call, and just wanted to say that you're fantastic. Coverage all in and out. I just couldn't. You are my go-to constantly, you guys. And like I say, just thank you for years of fantastic output. And I look forward to listening to so much more.
Oh, thanks very much. That means a lot,
dude. You can keep going, keep praising us if you want.
Absolutely.
I'm joking.
But like I say, this is normally the point when it's 6:30 in the morning in London, and this is when you're really flagging it. It's just completely impossible. So I would say 5 p.m. Pacific start for WrestleMania. I'm all for that. It's completely night and day compared to the UK's experience of pay-per-views. It's normally absolutely tragic, particularly 5 o'clock on a Monday morning, and you got to start thinking about going to work somehow. It's a shocker. So this is pretty good today, I have to say.
Yeah, my hat's off to all of our UK-based listeners, because how you do it on a weekly basis, much less a weekend like this, my hat's off to you, because I could not imagine watching all of this, and it's starting at 3 or 4 in the morning, some of these shows.
Thank you so much for the kind words and for the patronage, Chris from London. Let's go up next to Hansi. Hansi, welcome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Well, I just want to say that, special night, so I thought I'd show my face. I don't mean to scare some of your viewers, but no, I thought this exceeded my expectations, because listen, I've called in and I've been calling mainly about AEW. I haven't been showing interest into WWE, and the build, I still remain the build is kind of ass, but I gotta say that I enjoyed myself. I did think that the show would deliver. I just thought as a guy who watches weekly, the build just wasn't there. But I gotta say, I can't complain about the stuff that I saw. I'm looking forward. I know Cody said in his interview that he's not gonna do any pot shots at AEW, and I understand that. But that doesn't mean. I mean, if any indication with Seth Rollins saying the "Welcome to the big leagues," I'm sure the program that he's gonna have, all of them are gonna mention. I'm already naming. Orton's gonna talk crap, Miz, Edge most likely, because you know what I mean. There's a lot of programs, and if this is the way that Cody's being presented, then I got no issue with it. With the Austin stuff, listen, I just thought it was gonna be a stupid talk show segment, and but listen, I understand the part of me that goes. It's I wish that there was more, that the guys were built up better than I would have anticipated this. Even though Owens did the best he could with what he was given and all that, I just didn't think the build was all there, but it exceeded my expectations, and I just enjoyed everything. Before I go, I'll just ask you guys a question. I don't know if you guys have heard the rumors that Edge might be rumored to be having a new group, and if that's the case, because he's a part-timer, right? I think having a new group would actually be really, really dope. Damien Priest has been rumored to be a part of it. I just want to know your guys' thoughts. If you guys think it'll be coming to fruition, and who would you guys kind of want to be a part of the group if it comes to fruition?
Thanks very much, Hansi, for the call. What do you think, John? Who would you put in a potential stable with Edge?
I would want some guys that you have plans for that are just missing that ingredient of having a talker attached to them or just kind of lost in the shuffle. That you see some promise in. So a Damien Priest, sure, you could hit him in there. He's one that you like. Time is ticking on a Damien Priest, who, I mean, when you look at where he was last year and to be back here, where he's not on the card, I think that's unfortunate because he was somebody that I thought, he did get hurt right after the zombie match, but was he hurt in that match? No, it was Miz that got hurt in that match.
I believe so, yes.
He did miss some time last year, but nonetheless, it's, didn't get to that level that I think many people saw him getting to. So it wouldn't hurt to be attached there. And the rest, it's ultimately, whether it's a call up or whether it's people that are already on the existing main roster that maybe are just don't have much going on direction wise, but you see that potential in.
Yeah, he's working sort of like a corporate, like a dark, almost like a sinister minister almost type of vibe to him now with his speaking. So I wonder like if they're looking for more like of that sort of character, and certainly Damien Priest would fit in there. But I mean, there are a lot of people on NXT, especially if they're getting called up, that I think could be a great part of a potential stable like that. I wonder if a Tommaso Ciampa, might work out.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like you're watching that show today, and you're watching it, and it's like he is one where it's just, man, the success rate, it's not impossible, but it's going to be tough for him.
It will be tough, yeah. But, there has been some at least proven track record with a few weeks of success, I would say. So we shall see. Let's go up next for our calls to John. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're doing well.
Thank you so much for having me. Listen, first of all, I wanted to just point out that I was looking at your streams tonight. I think you crested 900 live viewers. I don't know what your record is, but I was rooting for 1,000, but didn't quite get there as far as I saw. But love you guys.
I think the highest we've had was probably for like an AEW pay-per-view, and that was probably like 500 something from my recollection. So yeah, this definitely was probably the highest.
Love to be a part of this. I don't know how you guys do this week to week, especially this week. It's insane. Thank you. That's all I'll say.
Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, man.
Of course. And honestly, John, thank you for doing the Supercard of Honor review today. I watched it this morning and then immediately went into your review and loved it. So thank you for that.
Oh, I'm glad you watched the video. So someone watched it. So there you go.
Will you be watching the clusterfuck up next for 90 minutes so you can hear me and John Pine talk about that?
Listen, it's a long weekend, but yeah, I'll get to everything eventually.
It was quite the journey through the entire clusterfuck from Joey Janela Spring Break. So I had fun at least talking about it with John.
Awesome, I love it. So trying to get to tonight. I pretty much, I don't want to shit on WWE, but I pretty much only follow it through you guys now, which I love. And like Hansy said, the main event it was weird. Like going into it, I was like, oh, it's just going to be like a Raw or SmackDown main event interview segment. Honestly, when the bell rung, I had goosebumps, and I was like, oh my God, they're doing this. Like, I'm such a jaded WWE fan. I'm more of an AEW fan overall these days. But when that bell rung, I was like, oh my God, it took me back to being a teenager. And I was like, this is, and then the match was great. It was so much fun. And so it's just fun to be like having a fun night with wrestling again. That's all I'll say.
I'm totally with you. Like, I don't know if you get more like, like we watch a lot of wrestling, and I don't know if I wouldn't exactly say we're jaded, but like we've seen a lot and we have very high expectations. But I was right with you. Like, I felt like a kid tonight watching Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestling.
Yes.
So, yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the call, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we have one more super chat to go to from Felipe from Chile, who sends 3,000 Chilean pesos.
I don't know what that means, but thank you.
I think we can retire.
Zeros, done. After
I think we're good.
WrestleMania, that's all we needed.
He says, any chance The Rock appears at the end of WrestleMania tomorrow? Greetings from Chile. Very fun show tonight.
I would say doubtful. You can't dismiss it. If if his schedule allowed for it or something like that. Like, obviously that is the match they want to build to. I don't see them doing it this far out from it. I just think it becomes really tough to if you were to shoot that angle tomorrow, and that does it kind of like telegraph your next year. Like, that makes it like exceedingly tough in a situation where you have one champion, and essentially you're telling everyone that unless he like slips on a banana peel and loses his title over the next year, which I would not want to do if I'm doing Reigns and Rock next year, for instance. So I guess I'm not expecting it tomorrow, but I mean, you can't say 100% no.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily expect. I mean, you know what? Like, if they're looking for that big moment to go off the show with, I mean, that would certainly create a lot of headlines. But I'm personally probably going to say no too, because it requires like a year's long worth of commitment. And as The Rock gets older and the more of a higher commodity he becomes for Hollywood, that's going to be that much tougher to commit to.
Well, that's the toughest part, is that today he could say, yeah, I want to do WrestleMania next year. You cannot predict this guy's next 12 months. And if something, he just gets, a role he cannot turn down, or a business opportunity that takes up so much of his time, it's really hard to commit to something, because it's not just the idea, well, he can be free for one of those nights. It's the preparation for it. It's shooting the angles. It's
praying that he doesn't get injured.
Of course, all of that. I think it's really tough to earmark that, and you hope you plan something long term, but to actually announce it is tough.
Next year, Roman Reigns, mystery opponent. Could be The Rock. Could be anybody else.
Marco Stunt finally gets to WrestleMania.
Could be. Okay, we have some feedback, of course, from forum.proswrestling.com. This is available to all of our patrons who sign up. So you can access the feedback section for all of our shows, and you can leave some feedback if you want. So we'll go through as many as we can, John. And you cut me off if you think it's
sure.
time to stop. Do you want to start?
All right. From the Yeti. Excellent wrestling marred by awful commentary and camera work. I was wondering if you guys think the show is still affected by COVID in a sense, and next year's will be higher attendance. Can't help but feel the fly-in crowd from Europe must still be low. I usually know at least one person traveling over for Mania from the UK, but there wasn't even a discussion about doing that this year from any of my friends. Hard to say. It's not as though that. I feel like that is. Probably there's something to that, but I think I think you could also be overblowing that a lot as a reason.
I would say 77,000 for 2 nights. Or sorry, I'm using their bullshit number. 65,000.
See, it's working.
Yeah, 65,000 for 2 nights feels pretty healthy. Right?
Like we know from Brandon, like with the turnstile count, like 80 is what it caps out at. So, I mean, would you have been able to put 15,000 more into the stadium both nights with like more travelers? I'm not that confident that would have made the difference.
Mm-hmm. We go up next to Aaron from Brampton, who asks or says, aside from the Charlotte Ronda match, that was a great first night to WrestleMania. It was a lot of fun. I couldn't help but smile for Cody. I think when you look back at everything in his career to this point, this is everything he ever wanted. He wanted to feel like a main event star on the biggest stage. Now, not only does he feel like one, he is one. I hope Cody gets the WWE run he's always wanted. We shall see. I mean, I would say tonight he felt like a main eventer, but is he going to continue to be a main eventer in the weeks to come? That's still a big what if. And do you think this is like the narrative now? He is, I would say, at least looking to change in the public eye, is that it was time to leave AEW, and he is after the main event WWE championship that his father never had. Do you think that's in your opinion authentic, or is it spin?
I always saw Cody as of all of the. Your EVP category at AEW, of the people that I think succeeding at the highest level in WWE was necessary. I always viewed that with Cody, where I did not for the others. Like, I don't think Kenny Omega will ever feel that WWE is something he has to do. I don't think the Young Bucks view it as something that they have to do. Someone like a Chris Jericho, I know this is separate from an EVP. I think he is. I think that guy is right down to what are the opportunities and money. I would not dismiss the idea of Jericho ever going back to WWE for one more, whether it be short run WrestleMania program. I can't dismiss that outright. Cody, I always viewed as somebody that I think that does carry weight. I also feel that Cody, it's the idea of him going back to AEW one day is not out of the question in the least. It's but for the foreseeable future, for several years, it's going to be here in WWE. We go next to Rob. I felt it was a thumbs in the middle show. Really slow start in the first 3 matches. The pace picked up with that terrific Bel-Air entrance. She felt like a huge star. The Seth Rollins match was my vote for $5,000 match of the night. Seth may just be one of, if not the best wrestler today. I was surprised by that Rousey finish and wondered if they changed it last minute when Vince decided to go with Austin last. It does build to a WrestleMania Backlash match. Last segment was fun, though it dragged a bit. I had no idea why Owens was arrested after losing to a man who was just drinking and driving in public, but that's entertainment. Looking forward to tomorrow, and keep up the great work, guys. Well, that's it's Texas.
Yeah, that is. I mean, we don't know the laws in that particular county. Maybe.
Who was it? There was somebody, I think, on the forum that was there at the venue and said, the only masks I see here are from the Mysterios. So I hope everyone's vaccinated here.
Oh boy, there you go. Okay, we got a Manny from Pacoima, who says, really fun show tonight. It's always a blast when you don't take the product seriously and just enjoy the moment. The crowd was happy to see Cody back in WWE, and he and Seth had a great match. Bianca and Becky also had a great match with a well-deserved victory for Bianca. And the fact that Bianca makes her own gear is just insane. Hopefully I'm able to get tickets for WrestleMania Inglewood, not Hollywood. Wishing Rick Boogs a speedy recovery.
Yeah, Inglewood always getting slighted here. It'll either be LA or Hollywood in the mentions. We continue on here, and we go to Click. Is there a name here? This is a regular. Okay. What a show. Show of the year for me. Cody's debut couldn't have gone much better. Very smart decision holding off until tonight. That was match of the night for him. Bianca and Becky was a close second. Very happy to see Bianca get that big win. I loved Austin and Owens. Not a 5-star classic, but it was what it needed to be. Charlotte and Ronda was good. Didn't love the finish. Miz and Pollock and some Mysterios was much better than I expected. And tough break for Rick Boogs. When WWE is on, they're great. Too bad they're on 10% of the time. Great show, though. 9 out of 10.
I will say, when it comes to their premium live events, more often than not, I'm pretty satisfied with the in-ring content. We've heard, this is, you save the wrestling for the pay-per-views, and the rest of the time, you stick to script. And the scripts, unfortunately, often are not that great. The story builds are not that great. But when it comes to bell, this is an incredibly talented roster. We go up next to Muggin, who says, Bianca Belair got a receipt for SummerSlam and then some. Her and Becky Lynch put on a fantastic match that more than made up for that Vegas fiasco. I almost had a stroke with that 26-second callback. It's my pick for match of the night. I mean, I don't know if, Muggin, you're kind of speaking in character, but it required the Vegas fiasco. I'm not saying it was the right move, but it played a part in the reaction tonight. So, that's kind of my thought. But he says it's been a poorly kept secret for months, but Cody has returned to the fold, keeping his AEW presentation intact. He and Rollins put on a damn good match. I was leery about Owens versus Austin because of the possibility of a clunker. Thankfully, the no-holds-barred stipulation did work in their favor.
Okay, and our final one comes from Patrick, who became a patron this week. Thank you, Patrick. And he says, I haven't watched Raw since before the Rumble and have not seen an episode of SmackDown in a few years, but always tune in for the big live events like Mania to keep up. Hype level was not at all there for me aside from Becky and Bianca and Seth versus his mystery opponent. Coming out of the show, I thought Bianca and Becky was fantastic. That was his match of the night. And that Rollins and Rhodes managed to over-deliver in a genuinely great match. Owens and Austin also over-delivered in a very, very fitting main event. Flair and Rousey was disappointing. While Logan Paul did impress me, I can't say any of the other matches left me feeling excited for any lasting or leaving any lasting impression. Biggest negative was the constant commercial breaks in between every match and the fact that each break featured mainly the same small set of commercials, which really killed momentum for me. Yeah, we went over that. I mean, in terms of a show viewing experience, and listen, if you're a viewer, that's going to be your viewing experience, and if it interrupts it, it's a criticism, but it's there for a reason, and it's obviously that is going to be something that they are probably not going to adjust.
Mm-hmm. And that wraps it up. We're running pretty late, so I know there's somebody in the room waiting for us right now. Please call back tomorrow when we do this all over again. But we're approaching 2 hours. This is a pretty long stream, but I mean, again, I'm not really tired. Like, I'm pretty energized. I don't know about you, John.
Yeah. You want to come over?
You want to watch more wrestling?
No, I don't at this point. I would like to get 4 hours of sleep tonight. That would be ideal. And then we'll do it all again tomorrow. So thank you to everybody that joined us live or is listening after the fact. We appreciate it. And all of the coverage that you've been checking out over the past couple of days from everyone on the site at postwrestling.com. Do check out the Up Next feed where Brain and Davey have over an hour discussing the Stand and Deliver card from Saturday that featured many different aspects. A horrendous elbow drop off of a ladder by Grayson Waller. That was maybe the scariest thing I watched today. Did you see his photo? He was in a sling
because I watched it right before WrestleMania. I didn't have time to watch the aftermath, but man, yeah, it looked pretty rough.
Yeah, he was in a sling from the press box at WrestleMania. So it looked really bad. That was just a nasty fall. But if we have some time, maybe we'll chat a little bit about NXT tomorrow. But we are back tomorrow night, same time. We will have coverage on the site from John Cena throughout WrestleMania, and then we will be live minutes after WrestleMania concludes. And we will have a whole breakdown, your calls, forum, feedback, all of that great stuff. So that is going to wrap it up, and Wei has the final word.
Please subscribe to the channel, share our shows. It really helps us out. We're constantly trying to grow. And if you really happen to like us, consider becoming a patron at postwrestlingcafe.com.
Good night.